Afternoon, all. Welcome to our today 87th session, GST session, where today we are going to discuss about the 55 GST Council updates, the recommendation which they have made, and the action which you need to take at your end. Plus, we will be also be discussing about IMS. So, with moving on to our session, we'll be sharing the screen. I hope screen is visible.
Yes, ma'am, it's visible.
So our today's flow of will be first we will discussing about the clarification which has been issued, plus about the recommendation which GST Council has said about the act and rule, and what are the various rate changes or exemption which has been notified by notification. So moving one by one. Now, clarification has been issued on the four things. First is about e-commerce operator. One and second one is in relation to ITC on app, where the contract is X work with respect to place of supply for unregistered person, and about the voucher. So the first clarification which they have issued is about the e-commerce operator. Now, as we have seen under 9.5, which deals with the where the liability has been passing on e-commerce operator, where the vendors are using e-commerce operator platform to supply the goods or services. Now, based on that, on the services, they have implemented RCM, where the instead of supplier, e-commerce operator is liable to collect the tax from the customer and pay to the government. And we have noticed that in order to capture this data, they have also last year amended for GSTR1 also, where they have separately provided a table to report about e-commerce operator detail by both, by the e-commerce operator also and by the supplier, where they require to separately give the details of the transaction they done through e-commerce operator and where e-commerce operator is liable to pay the taxes. Now the doubt which was raised, as e-commerce operator, though made liable to collect and pay the tax, but it is not the supply of e-commerce operator. Now, if we go to section 17, over there it deals with when a supplier is engaged in providing both taxable and exempt supply. But when we come to 17.3, when we read about the value of exempt supply, they also said that even the supply which is covered under RCM, outward supply covered under RCM, also need to be included in order to reverse the input tax credit which has been availed. So section 17 deals with when you are providing taxable and exempt both, you are required to reverse the ITC. Now, when we see the exempt, what has been defined in 17.2 and 3, over there, while calculating the value of exempt, they are saying even the outward supply under RCM need to be included. So now doubt has been raised, though e-commerce operator by way of operation of 9.5 has been made liable to pay tax, but still it is not their outward supply. Like 17.3 sets about outward supply under RCM, but this is not an outward supply of e-commerce operator. So that's why the doubt was raised how the same should be dealt. Should we still require to reverse the ITC? Now they have given this clarification and which is actually in line with law because this is not a supply of e-commerce operator and this supply which has been made that need to be paid in cash. E-commerce operator cannot use ITC for payment of this liability. So as they are paying in cash, No ITC also accrue on account of this. Therefore, no reversal is required in term of section 17(1) or 2, that is rule 42 and 43. So that's what the clarification they have provided and is a welcome clarification in line with the concept that it does not belong to their supply. Now, second clarification. Relate to X work contract. Now, in case of X work contract, what was happening? Sometimes it's not the case that goods actually is physically received by the recipient. It can be a case that recipient may want to get that good delivered to the another person. Or it may be a case that it has been handed over to transporter and from where transporter is going to take care and give it to the recipient. So as you will read 16(2)(b, which deals with the ITC, there is also a concept of bill to ship to. So it is inbuilt in the law and they have themselves specified that it is not the physical receipt of goods that is required in order to claim the ITC. If we read section 16, what it says that we should be in possession of invoice, goods or service should be received. One of the condition is goods or service should be received. Now the question which arises, it should be considered as a physical receipt or transfer of title in goods in enough to show that goods has been received. So over here they have clarified that it is the transfer of title. It's not the physical receipt which is mandatory. It should show that now the goods is being owned by the recipient. Now he has the authority to deal with the goods. To that extent, they are saying physical receipt is not mandatory. If goods has been handed over, became the owner, recipient became the owner, he has the title of the goods, even though not physically received in his physical premise, then also ITC will be eligible. But obviously provided the other condition which is prescribed under section 16, that is supplier must file the GST return, it should be auto-populated in GSTR 2B, 3B must be filed. All other conditions need to be fulfilled, then you are definitely eligible for ITC, irrespective of the fact whether the goods have been physically received at your premise. Third clarification. Now this deals with a supply which is made to an unregistered person. Now, if we read our section 12, so IGST Act I'm talking about. Now, if you will see section 12 of IGST Act, there are specific circumstance specific services they have prescribed. Based on that, they have defined what will be the place of supply. But there is one residual which says that subsection 2, which says that when it is supplied to a registered person, then the location of that registered person, and when it is supplied to unregistered person, then the state detail which is available at that time recorded in the tax invoice will be considered as a place of supply. If it is not available, then automatically by default it will become the supplier place of supply. The supplier location will become the place of supply. Now, in case of online services or the services which is not specifically getting covered in these section 12(3) to 12(12), those who are falling under the default rule, they are required to mandatory now capture the state. If you don't capture the state on the tax invoice, in case your recipient is unregistered, then you will be liable for the penalty also. They have specified that general penalty will be applicable of 50K. So now it is important whenever you are making and supply to an unregistered person, though this they have specifically given for online services, but it is equally relevant for other services also which has been provided to an unregistered person, that you record the state of that unregistered person on the tax invoice, and accordingly the place of supply will be determined. Now the fourth clarification which they have issued is with regard to voucher. Now, for voucher, there was a specific provision under GST. They were specifically saying when the time of supply of the voucher will arise. we were having section 12(4) and 13(4), where it says that when on voucher you are liable to pay tax. But there were a lot of ambiguity and lot of issue were arising how the such voucher should be should be treated as taxable. Reason that voucher is more or less is equivalent to like money. This is the exchange. It's the money value which we exchange with what we are purchasing, and to that the amount of voucher we get a reduction in the price. So there was a dispute on the taxability. Now they have come up with the clarification, and the first thing they have clarified that it is in the nature of transaction in money, and therefore it will neither be a supply of goods nor a supply of service. Thereby they said there will be no taxability on watch. After that, they have discussed about the various scenario. One scenario was principal to principal basis, where they are saying a person is selling voucher to another person. Even though there is a trading happening of voucher and there is a margin of profit, but still they are saying no GST applicable on the same. Again, same thought process they are applying the way they are saying for taxability of voucher. But when it comes to principal to agent, here they are saying GST will be applicable, but it is not on the voucher value. It is to be seen what agent is earning by selling the voucher. Means what is the commission or fee he is getting by working as an agent for the voucher. Based on that, GST will be determined, not on the voucher value. So based on what agent is earning through distribution of this voucher, GST will be applicable. And obviously, if you are providing as a distributor or as an agent of that principal, any additional service by way of advertisement and co-branding and all, they are saying it will be liable to GST because it's an additional service which you are providing in return to of the voucher which the principal is giving to you. Now, one concept is when we are getting our voucher redeem. When we are getting our voucher redeem, at that time we are paying the taxes on the full value. Because now they have said that earlier the time of supply was based on issue of voucher. The moment I issue my voucher and it is against the identifiable product or service, then it was on that time only I need to pay the taxes. But where it is not identifiable, means voucher is of such nature, it can be used against any product or any service. At that time, they said when you will be redeeming that voucher, then GST will be applicable. Now, this is no longer valid. Now, this will no longer will be applicable, but all this will happen from 1st April 2025. They are going to omit the section of time of supply. Accordingly, now the time of supply for voucher will become redeemed when we do the redemption, because at that time, the suppliers or the distributor, whoever from whom we are getting our voucher redeemed, they will be charging us a GST on the total amount, even though there will be deduction of voucher while making the payment, but GST will be charged on the total value of the product. Then the second issue arises, okay, it is a case where I am getting the voucher reading at that time, taxability will work in that fashion. But what would happen in case the voucher does not got redeemed at all? At that time, they are saying no GST will be applicable. Over here, the chain has got break because once voucher got expired, it is having no value, it can't be redeemed. Even nothing has been got by the principal also. There is no income earned by giving the voucher also. Therefore, no GST will be applicable on it. This were the clarification issue. Now coming to the council recommendation. These are the recommendation which has been made but still not implemented. Notification has not been still notified. But as per the press release, it is going to be made applicable from 1st April 2025. Now, first part of this recommendation which they have made is about amending section 17(5)(d). Now, section 17(5) deals with block credit. Now, under block credit, we have C and D. which deals with the disallowance of ITC on construction services, which is used for construction of immovable property or used for own construction. So those were the ITC disallowed. Now you all will be recently aware of Safari retreat case. Now in Safari retreat case, Supreme Court has analyzed the section 17(5) and D. And that analysis has been done based on the one phrase, that is plant or machinery. When we will read the act, we will notice most of the places the word plant and machinery has been used, even in 17(5)(c). But when we come to 17(5)(d), which deals with the construction service of own immovable property, over there the term is used plant or machinery. And based on this phrase, the Supreme Court has given a judgment whereby it has given the view that ITC, even though used for own construction, can be made available if it is for further supply, where it has been used for not for office purpose, but for further supply means where there is a storage, suppose storehouse construction. So obviously that storehouse you are going to let out. Or if there is a mall construction where you are going to let out the space to other persons. So where it is for further supply, they said ITC will be allowed, but it is based on functionality test which will be determined. Now with this amendment, and they are proposed for retrospective amendment. Now this apex court judgment will not be applicable, and obviously it will time will decide. Obviously people is going to go again to Supreme Court again this decision of retrospective amendment. Now due to this retrospective amendment, the ITC which was appeared to be eligible, being even though used for own construction, based on this amendment will not be applicable. So if anybody has availed any ITC in relation to construction service, verify the same in the facts of the case, because even though they are doing retrospective amendment, maybe this, we don't know, but maybe Supreme Court, even if they may say for past period, they will not, but for prospective amendment, ITC should be disallowed. If that would have happened, then you need to be careful that you don't avail the ITC. And even if you have not availed the ITC, you have parked that ITC. Still you have not availed or utilized the ITC, you have just parked that ITC. Keep the ITC park, because with this retrospective amendment, it may be a case the ITC, which based on Supreme Court you might have taken, may still disallow by the department once again, based on this retrospective amendment. Now, another thing is about the Schedule 3, which deals with supply, which will neither be a supply of goods or neither be a supply of service. So over there, they have said that where the goods has been warehoused in SEZ area or freight trade zone, over there, no GST will be applicable until and unless same is moved to a domestic area. So within that zone, GST will not be applied until and unless it is moved to DTA. And this is in line with custom provision they have done. Another important amendment which they are going to bring up about is about pre-deposit requirement. Now we have noticed when we file an appeal, first appeal, appellate authority, there we are required to make 10% of pre-deposit of the tax disputed. So the tax which is admitted, you have to pay. 10% of tax disputed, you need to pay. But there is one more thing is about penalty. Now for penalty, which they have brought in is for e-waiver penalty, where they are saying a person can file an appeal by making 25% of the penalty amount. Now the case is that now they are planning to make an amendment whereby they will impose this 20, first they will reduce this 25 to 10%, plus this 10% will be applicable only in only case where only penalties are involved. Suppose there can be a case that you have might paid the tax and interest and you are fighting for penalty. So if order is only for penalty, then you are required to pay 10%. Earlier, even though you didn't pay the penalty amount, you can go ahead with the filing of appeal because it was of tax amount and tax was fully paid. So if any one of you have any case where it is only the penalty which you are disputing, make sure you file this before in budget they announce this and implement it. So before the Feb, so basically by 31st January, you should try to file your appeal so that you can avoid this 10% pre-deposit. And similar changes they are going to brought for second appeal also, appeal to tribunal. So earlier only for e-way bill penalty we were paying, now for all the penalty cases. But when I'm saying penalty, in each and every notice penalty is imposed. If taxes are there, then based on taxes only 10% or 20% pre-deposit need to be done. But where the case is only and only related to penalty, then prior to this recommendation, no pre-deposit was required to be made. Now with recommendation, in case of only penalty also, you require to make 10% of pre-deposit. But this all will be implemented from as of now as per precedents 1st April 2025. So it's better if you can file an appeal before that. Then this is local fund and municipal fund they have defined for the purpose of local authority and municipal authority. Now input service distributor. Recently we saw that they have made the changes for input service distributor, trying to make it mandatory to follow ISD, and they have by way of circular they have clarified that though it was not mandatory till date, but now from 1st April 2025, they are going to make it mandatory. So person having multi-GSTN are now required to look into the fact whether they require input service distributor registration or they require to do cross charge. So person who are having multi-GSTN have to check this, and based on that they have to decide in which places they require ISD registration or they require to do cross charge. Now, what the recommendation they have made is when they made the change in the definition of input service distribution earlier, they covered only CGST RCM. Intrastate RCM they only covered. Interstate RCM was not covered. Now the amendment is proposed also to cover interstate RCM so that ISD will pay under RCM and will distribute that credit to the branches to which it is relevant. And accordingly, they have suggested for changes in rule also for the distribution. Now, next part is related to payment process for non-registered person. Now, if a person is unregistered and if he is liable to pay tax, how he can pay? That's the reason they are coming up with the concept of temporary registration, where the officer will allow temporary registration and based on temporary registration, GST payment can be made. And accordingly, they are going to make the changes in section and rule. Composition taxpayer. Now, composition taxpayer, you can opt. So they have given a category when you are opting for composition that either you are a manufacturer, service or other. Now, there is a form. If we need to amend that we are changing our category, then we need to do through amendment form, that is REG 14. Now they are going to inbuild that in CMP 02 itself. So through that table only, we can change our category of registered person. Now, this late fee for 99C, we have earlier seen multiple amnesty scheme they have given. Earlier they said if you file within this date, 10,000 late fee and all will be applicable. But the issue which was arising is about when 9 and 9C both were applicable. But maybe a case 9 has been filed within due date, 9C has been filed after due date. So will late fee will be applicable? Because if we read earlier, there were two separate sections. There were a case of self-certification. So there were section 35 and 44, which were separately dealing with this. But when we go to late fee, there was only one section for GSTR 9, they were saying about the late fee. So the question which arises for even for 9C late fee will be applicable or not. And after that, from 2021, they said that both they incorporated in one and self-certification was removed. So 9 and 9C was done on a self-assessment basis only. But even though they are doing on self-assessment, whether due to 9C delay, late fee will be applicable or not. So that's what the question which was involved. So over there, they are saying when we discuss about the late fee, it includes both 9 and 9C. So if 9C is also filed with delay, you are liable to pay late fee. You can't take a plea that you have filed the 9 within due date. And second part, they are planning to come up with again with a waiver of late fee for 9C. But provided you file your 9C, if any pending for the period 1780 to 2223 by 31st March 2025. Again, they are coming with one more waiver, but with the conditions. Invoice management system. This part will be taken by Jagadeesh, so I will not go into it much. Over here, they are basically saying that they are going to, in the act and rule also, they are going to streamline the process where they are going to take the ITC or 3B auto population of ITC based on GSTR 2B. So based on IMS, they will freeze my ITC and based on that only I will claim ITC, and until and unless that freezing is done, I won't be able to file my 3D. So that is what their plan is, and that is what they have mentioned in their recommendation. This is another compliance which they are going to propose. Basically, they are going to the cases or the product or the goods, which are the cases where a lot of evasion happened, like scrap industry, metal industry, where a lot of, so they are planning that they are going to implement about unique identification mark. So based on that, it can be checked where the goods are moving, the package. So there will be a proper track, transparency will be there in order to curb the evasion. Now coming to the part of rate changes. Now these are the rate changes which has been implemented and notified. In this in relation to goods. So over here, I am focusing on the part which is more or less relevant to all. So here even sale of old or used vehicle, including EV, they have said GST will be applicable, and they have given margin base, means sales price minus purchase price. So earlier also GST was applicable. The only thing is currently the rate has been increased from 12 to 18%. So now higher rate of GST will be applicable. Plus merchant exporter. Now as we know, they have given a benefit, the person for merchant export 0.1% of tax. Now for compensation, similar notification was not specified. Now they are saying in line to keep the GST with compensation says they are going to change the compensation also with 0.1%. So therefore now if anybody is dealing in the goods where merchant exporters are involved, cess also will be applicable at par with the GST rate, is that is 0.1%. These are other goods related changes. Now coming to the part of service. Now I am only covering the topic which I feel is relevant for all. Somewhere some expenses you might be having. Anyhow, PPT will be shared. If you feel anything has been you want to discuss, you can write in chat, we can discuss it. Now renting of immovable property. 18 July 2022, they brought RCM liability, where they said if there is a supply of from unregistered person to a registered person, RCM will be applicable in case of immovable property. Now over there when they said that, so they brought each and everybody under the taxability, irrespective of the fact whether that property you are using for business purpose or residential. The only thing which they want is it should be a supply from unregistered to registered. So even though if it is a residential or purpose was to tax business, but even for like director or employee, if a company is incurring expense of residence and paying the tax and company is registered and the landlord is raising bill on the company, then GST was liable to pay under RCM. Now in this, they have said they are removing the composite dealer. So composite dealers are not required to pay this under RCM on renting of immovable property. And this they have proposed from 10th October 2024. So even for past period also, they are not required. Then the part is sponsorship service. Now sponsorship service was covered under RCM, irrespective of the fact who is providing. Now they are saying if it is provided by a body corporate, then they are saying it will not be covered under RCM, it is under forward charge. So if you are a body corporate who is providing sponsorship service, make sure you make the changes. Now you are required to charge under FCM. Now it will not be passed on to your recipient. Now third change which they have brought is about the hotel accommodation and restaurant service. So over there we were having two rates, 5% without ITC and 18% with ITC. Now those were linked to declared tariff. If you were having a room which is having up 7,500 as a declared tariff, then you were liable to pay at a higher rate. Now they are saying they are removing this declared tariff concept and they have come up with the concept of specified premises. They have also even defined the specified premises. Three things they are saying. The first part they are saying you have to check your last year, whether in your last year, your specified premises have any unit which is above 7,500 based on actual value. So if it is more than 7,500, you fall under specified premises and you are liable to pay on 18% GST. Or if your current year is above 7,500, then also you are liable. And if you are newly person who is going to register and you know that you will fall under specified registration, specified premises, then you have to pay the tax at the rate of 18% and you can claim the input tax credit. Then there are other changes also. Plus, they are saying if any panel charges which is collected and paid by the bank or NBFC for borrowers, then on those panel charges, no GST will be leviable. So with this, over to you, Jagdish.
Yeah, thank you, ma'am. Let me share my screen. Is my screen visible?
Yes.
Hello.
Yes, yes.
Yes. Now coming to the IMS. IMS, we all know that from October 2024 onwards, they have implemented this IMS, Invoice Management System. Before going into further, first we'll understand what is IMS. IMS, it is a tool which was introduced by the GSTN um, to help taxpayers to manage their invoices in the GST portal. Till now, we don't have a control in managing the invoices which we receive from our supplier. So what this IMS will help the recipient to check and manage invoices uploaded by your supplier. It increases accountability between suppliers and recipient. It is a tool between your GST 2B and 3B. They have implemented this IMS invoice management system. So with the help of this IMS, you can avoid mistakes and ensure you are claiming the correct input tax credit. So how we have to use this IMS and how it will work, and the IMS workflow will understood in the slides. So before that, first we'll understood how the current our return filing system works. As and when your supplier file your GSTR1, that is on or before the due date of filing GSTR1, that is 11th of subsequent month. But for the previous month, that is for the December 2024, it got extended up to the 13th. If your supplier files your GSTR1 on or before the due date, automatically it flows to your 2B on 14th. From 2B, it will get auto-populated in your GSTR 3B. Till now, up to the before the implementation of IMS, your GSTR 2B is static. But now your the figures, the records in your GSTR 2B will change based on based on your actions in the IMS. So now see, yeah, just a second. So moving on to the next slide. So what are the contents of the IMS? IMS will have the two dashboards. One is for the supplier and other is for the recipient. In the outward supply, a supplier can view what are all the actions taken by his recipient on his invoices. The supplier, if your recipient has rejected it, the supplier can see it. And similarly, for the recipient, there will be inward supplies related. What are all the documents uploaded by your supplier? All those records, you can see it in the inward section. So now we'll see the workflow of the IMS. So if you see here, just a second. If you see here, as and when your supplier generated e-invoice, it will go to my NIC portal, that is invoice reporting portal. So from invoice reporting portal, it will flow to my GSTR1 after 2 days. That means T plus 2 days. Or else, if my supplier saved the record invoice in GSTR1, as and when it reaches the GSTR1, it will transmit to my IMS system, invoice management system. You can see here from from supply, it is going to the IRP, and from IRP, it is going to the supplier GSTR1. From supplier GSTR1, it is flowing to the IMS, recipient IMS. This is recipient IMS. So whether all records will flow to my IMS, recipient IMS, the answer is no, except RCM and ineligible ITC will not flow to my IMS. They will go directly to my GST2B. If you see the red line which is passing to GST2B, you can see the RCM and ineligible documents. RCM means if your supplier is reporting invoice as an RCMS, those records will flow to my GST2B directly without passing through IMS. And also as well as the ineligible document will also directly go to my GST2B. What is this ineligible document? How the system knows that it is ineligible? Because of POS, place of supply. If I am in Karnataka, my registration is in Karnataka, but I received an invoice having a place of supply Andhra Pradesh. In that case, because of different place of supply, that is the ineligible document as far as system concerned. So that ineligible document will also that invoice will mark as an ineligible, and in that 2B also it will be go and sit in my ineligible section. So all the eligible records will flow to my IMS. In the IMS, recipient will have an multiple options. You can see here, recipient can take either he can opt for hello. Yeah, ma'am, am I audible?
Yes, Hitesh, you are audible.
Yes. So in IMS, recipient can take multiple actions. You can see here, either he can reject it, or else he can accept it, or he can choose to not to act on that invoice, or if he want, he can put it in the pending. Now we'll see for what action, how the IMS or if we have not taken any action. If we have not taken any action, also it's deemed to be accepted. In both these cases, that is accept and no action, it will go to my GST to be as eligible ITC. And if you put as in pending, oh, if you mark any invoice as in pending, it will not flow to my 2B. You can see here, it will be in IMS only till you accept it. So if you see here, it is not flowing to my GST or 2B. Only accept, no action, reject are flowing to my 2B. So what if any credit note received from my supplier, if I rejected it, and that liability will be added to my supplier, because if I reject it, what my supplier is doing, he is reducing his liability by issuing the credit note. What I am doing here, I am supposed to reduce my input tax credit, but here I am not doing that. There is a loss to the revenue, right? So what IMS is doing, he as and when I reject it, it is going to the supplier, uh, go to the supplier GST 3B and adding liability to that. So there is no loss to the revenue. That is for the government, there is no loss. So for that reason, if I reject any credit note issued by my supplier, automatically it will add liability to my supplier in the next period. That is a subsequent period. Let's say for the month of the December, my supplier has issued one credit note. What I have to do, I supposed to reduce my input tax credit, but I am rejecting it. So obviously my credit will not get reduced, but whatever the liability my supplier has reduced, it will be added to his liability in the next period. That is for the month of Jan 2025 return. This liability will get added to his liability in the GST 3B. So I have taken all the action. So let's say for 80% of the invoices, I have accepted it, whereas 10% of invoices, I have 5% I have not taken any actions, whereas for the 5% I kept it in pending. So all these are flowing to my 2B. So 5% I have rejected it, right? So all these will go and sit in my 2B under rejected section. And when my if you see here, I have written it as a draft GST 2B. Why this is draft GST 2B? Because it will get keep on change on taking actions in the IMS even after generating 2B. When my GST 2B will get generated on 14th of every month, my GST 2B will get generated. But if I have taken any action post to the 14th, so today I am in 18. 18, I have reject some invoices or accept some invoices or kept pending some invoices. All the if I rejected, all these invoices will get removed from a GST 2B and new 2B will get generated. Okay. If I am having ITC of 1 lakh, today I am rejecting the invoice amounting to 10,000. So my ITC in 2B will become 90,000, right? So as and when the GST to be generated, the same figures will be auto-populated in GST 3B, right? So to get the GST 3B updated, you are taking action, rejecting 10,000 amount 10,000 input invoices. So what you have to do is you have to recompute 2B. So this recompute 2B will get enabled only after 14. Only after generating 2B, this recompute 2B will get activated. So now you are taking action. So after taking action, you have to click on recompute 2B. Then automatically the figures in GST 3B will get updated as uh, as per your actions in the IMS. So from IMS, uh, it is getting populated in your 2B. From 2B, it is going to my 3B. So between your 2B and 3B, this IMS is coming to the existing return filing system. If you have not taken any action in the IMS, how the current return filing system before, how you used to file your return before October, the same way you can file even now. So as of now, IMS is an optional. So moving on to the next slide. So now we'll see the record movement in the IMS. Yes, record movement in and out from the IMS dashboard. So what this is like my stock statement. What are all my the open records? Whatever the records I kept pending in the previous months, all are my opening records and new records. So this month my supplier will upload some invoices, right? All this will come into my uh, current period inward, like opening record, which are pending, which are carried forward from my previous periods, which are kept marked as pending in the previous period, and current period, whatever the invoices uploaded by supplier will commence it. So these two are my involved. So I can take action on both the things, opening records and the new records. On whatever records I have taken action, if I accept it, I have not taken any action, these will be moved to my GST 2B. That means it will be moved out of my IMS, invoice management system. I will go to my GST 2B. So even if I reject it, in that case also, it will be moved out of my IMS. So what are all the invoices I kept pending? I marked as an pending. All those will be carried forward to the subsequent periods. As long as they take action on those invoices, they will lie in my IMS. Yes. So till now we have seen the flow of records. Now we'll see what are all the records will not part of my IMS. So in case of ISD, if my if I am having any ISD registration, my ISD registration has filed GSTR 6. From GSTR 6, ITC will flow to my GSTR 2B. From 2B to 3B, it will come. But all those ISD invoices will not pass through the IMS, will not be part of my IMS. And also RCM docs, documents in GSTR 1. If my supplier, let's say I have Agarwal transportation service from VRL logistics. So we have uploaded invoice in the GSTR 1 by marking RCM as S. So that means I have to pay tax under reversal. In that case also, it will not come to my RCM and ineligible due to the place of supply. So like say earlier we discussed example that Andhra Pradesh and Karnataka, I am having the registration in Karnataka, but I am having the invoices with place of supply having Andhra Pradesh. In that case, I am not allowed to take the ITC. In that case also, it is a ineligible invoice. It will go directly go to my 2B in ineligible section and ineligible due to section 16 subsection 4. That is beyond the time limit. So as per section 16 subsection 4, I have to avail my ITC on or before November, 30th November, right? If my supplier, if my supplier have now reporting in his GSTR 1, let's say right now we are in the Jan month, March 2024 invoice, if he reported now in his GSTR 1, it will, I cannot take ITC now. So that's the reason automatically system will mark that invoice as an ineligible, and it will go directly go to my to be in ineligible section. So all the four documents will not flow to my IMS, will go directly to the GST 2B, from there to 3B. So what happened to your input tax credit? So what if I accept it, we'll see the impact in GST 2B and as well as in GST 3B. If I accept record in the IMS portal, it will be part of my GST 2B under ITC available section. Automatically, it will get auto populated in my GST 2B as eligible ITC. Okay. If I reject it, it will be part of GST 2B rejected section. It will go to my GST 2B, but it will go and sit in my rejected section. And it will not get auto populated in my 3B. Whereas if I kept pending, it will not move to anywhere. It will sit in my IMS as long as I take action on that. Obviously, it will not come to my 2B. It will be in IMS only, and also it will not go from 2B. It has to go 3B. But in 2B only, it didn't reflect. So from 2B, it will not go to the 3B also. So if I had not taken any action, as earlier said, if you have not taken any action also, it is deemed to be accepted. So obviously, it come to my 2B. From there, it will go to my GST at 3B. So we'll see the dashboard, how it will the interface in the GST portal. You can see here in services section under returns section, you can see the IMS dashboard. On clicking this IMS dashboard, you can see this interface. So here you can see the inward supplies and outward supplies. As of now, this outward supply field is not yet functional. Still, it is under development. But right now, inward supplies is functional and is available. Um, so let's see. Now we'll see the, if you go into the inward supplies section, you can see what are all the invoices that come into your IMS. So if you see here, there are total, there are a number of records in B2B, B2B invoices, amendments, debit notes, multiple various types of invoices are there. You can see here, out of these invoices, 10 total 18 invoices are there. On that, you have not taken any action on 6 invoices. You have accepted 4 invoices and rejected it 5 and pending it 3. If you can dig it more, if you click on this number, you can see what are all the invoices you have kept rejected or pending. You can see the invoices. So if you go into further, if you click on any on that, you can see here what are all the invoices, what action you have taken. You can select the multiple invoices based on your GSTN or based on place of supply. Sorry, not the place of supply, based on the action, based on trade name. You can search. You can select. You can have a facility to select the multiple invoices and take the action in a single time. So you can see here, after taking the action, you have to save. You have to click on the save. Then only all the records will get saved. So you can see here the various filter criteria they have provided based on GST, and you can search based on invoice type. You can search based on status. You can filter it based on source, whether from GSTR1 or re-invoice. Based on source also you can select filing status. Based on source filing status also you can select whether if he has filed or just saved the records. Even as we discussed in the first slide itself, even if my supplier saved his record in the his GSTR1 without filing his GSTR1, then also those records will come flow to my IMS. So based on the source filing status also, you can select either the file, not filed, and based on the date criteria also you can select. So you are having the multiple criteria to filter the invoices and take the action accordingly. So if you want to reset the certain category of invoices, you select those invoices based on the type and you can click on reset. So whatever action you have taken on those invoices will get reset. By default, it will go to the no action status. So the flow of the records, what will happen to the records in the IMS? Now we'll see flow of records. All the accepted, deemed accepted, rejected records will flow out of my IMS. So let's say there are 100 records in my IMS for the current period. Okay. So I have taken action on the 90 invoices. And on 5 invoices, I have not taken any action. Whereas on remaining 5 invoices, I have kept pending. So 95 invoices will move out of my IMS. Only 5 invoices will lie in my IMS, so which are marked as in pending. Only those records will lie in my will be an IMS. So may keep invoices pending if not eligible for ITC currently. You are uncertain about the particular invoice. You may feel that it doesn't belongs to me or wrongly uploaded by my supplier. You can keep it pending. So pending records will remain on ITC dashboard, and these records can be accepted or rejected in the future months. In the future months, you can accept it. So avail ITC on these invoices, you can avail ITC anytime up to 30th November of the subsequent year. Till when these invoices will lie in my IMS as per section 4, you can avail ITC only up to the 30th November of the subsequent year, right? Let's say, let's assume that IMS has implemented long back in the 23-24 onwards, let's say. So in the month of the March, one invoice, March 2024, my supplier has issued invoice now in the month of Jan 2025. So obviously on that invoice, I cannot take the ITC. So sorry, um, my supplier has uploaded invoice in the March 2024, but from then onwards, I have not taken any action. I every month I keep tick it as an pending. In that case, on reaching this 30th November, it will be moved out of my IMS. So draft GS, we'll say draft GS to be. So if I had not taken any action, GST to be generated on 14 month. How the GST to be generating now, the same way it will be generated. So because all the records will deemed to be accepted. So draft GST to be includes accepted records and no action taken records. Even no action taken records also deemed accepted, right? So recipient can take action or change action already taken and accepted till the filing of GST 3B. Recipient will have the facility, let's say, um, on 13th, he have taken an action and GST 2B has generated on the 14th as like um, no. So on 18th, today he has altered his actions like whatever some invoices what he have given acceptance, now he marked it as an rejected. So even now, even till he files his 3B, he can take the multiple, he can take the actions n number of times. There is no restriction in taking actions on the invoices. So only up to the GST 3B he can take action on those invoices. So draft GST 2B can be treated as the final 2B in case if we have not taken any action. If we have not taken any action on 2B, even after generating or before generating, whatever it may be. So your draft GST to be will your final GST to be because there is no change. So when I have to click compute GST to be, if we have seen that workflow in the last before 3B, you can find the GST to be compute GST to be button. So compute GST, this will get enabled only after the 14th. After generating your 2B only, this button will get enabled. So taxpayer can click on compute to be button to recompute your GST to be. So if you have taken any actions in the IMS, if you want to keep pending some invoices, so you can mark those invoices as pending and recompute to be. It will get removed. It will get removed from your 3B. And go to GST to view latest ITC detail and update ITC details will auto-populated in your 3B. So based on your action in your 2B, your 3B will get auto-populated. So after filing 3B, obviously you cannot take any action. So you can see here the compute 2B, compute 2B button. You can click it here. So IMS supply view. Just a second. Yes. This is the IMS supplier view. As of now, it is not functional. So supplier can view what are all the actions taken by you. He can see in his supplier view dashboard. So you can see here what are all the invoices he has accepted it or rejected it. So for each record, he can see the accept no action. For each invoice, against each invoice, he can see the status. Now we'll see the FAQs. Till date, GST had issued 3 FAQs. We'll see all those FAQs. Sequential generation. So unless if you have filed your GST at 3B for the previous period, the current year 2B will not get generated. So reset of record by the supplier. If my supplier has saved the record in GSTR1, that is before filing and before filing his GSTR1, he has edited. So as and when he saved record, I accepted it. But before filing his GSTR1, he has edited it. In that case, whatever the action I have taken on that record will get reset. Let's say I'm on today, let's assume today date is 10. He has uploaded one invoice, but he has not filed his GSTR1. But on the same day, on 10, I have accepted it. But on 11, he has edited some, edited a document. In that case, the action I have taken on 10 will get reset. We will go to the no action status. If my supplier on 10th he has uploaded, but on the same day I have accepted, but he has deleted that record. In that case, that record will move out of my IMS. So what are all the documents will not be available in IMS, but will be part of my 2B. This we have already discussed, but again, for better clarity, we'll discuss this once again. So all the RCM records, if my supplier has uploaded invoice by marking invoice as an RCMS, in that case, it will not form part of my IMS, but will be part of my GSTR 2B. Time barred ITC. So this also we have discussed with an example. And ineligible ITC due to place of supply rules, that Andhra Pradesh, Karnataka, this thing. And I get document that if I import any good, in that case, ITC will populate in my 2B under import of goods section. Import of goods direct in case of direct import, or in case of if I import from the SEZ, in that case IMPG SEZ section, it will go and sit, but it will not be form part of my IMS. So document flowing from NRTP and ISD. NRTP means non-resident taxable person, and input service distributor. If I receive any credit ITC from this NRTP or ISD, in that case also it will not form part of my IMS, but will go directly to my GST 2B. And documents for ITC to be reversed on account of Rule 37A. That is non-payment of taxable supplier. In that case also it will not form part of my IMS. So will there be any invoices where pending action is not allowed? Till now, what we have discussed, recipient will have 4 options to take an action, that is accept, reject, pending, no action, right? But there are some records where the recipient can take only 2 actions. Either he can accept it or reject it. You will not have an option of pending or no action. Either you have to accept or reject. Okay. So now we'll see what are all those documents. The credit note. Credit note. In case of credit note, if any credit note issued by your supplier, either you will have an option only to accept it or reject it. Okay. If you have not accepted it, deemed to be accepted, obviously your ITC will get reduced. And also upward amendment of the credit note. If my supplier has issued credit note, let's say for 100 rupees, 100 rupees. So in case of there is an upward, he has amended it to the 120. In that case also, I have to accept it or reject it. Similarly, downward amendment of the credit note. If the original credit note was rejected by the recipient, if my supplier has uploaded the credit note, but I had rejected it, but after that, again, he has reduced that amount in the credit note and reissued again. In that case also, just a second. Yes, in that case also, I can only accept or reject it. So similarly, downward amendment of the invoice or credit note, where original invoice or debit note was accepted by the recipient, and respect to GST 2B has also been filed. So if you see all these cases, there is a loss to the revenue if I rejected it and not get added to liability of my supplier. So that's the reason they have given only 2 options: accepted, rejected. In that case, if I accept it, my ITC will get reduced. If I reject it, whatever the ITC here my supplier has reduced will add it to his liability. So by doing so, there is no loss to the revenue. For this reason, they have restricted the pending action for all these type of invoices. So if you see the credit note section, if you see the portal, this extract I have taken from the portal, you can see here, you don't have an option to keep the invoice pending. So only you are having the actions of accept, reject, and no action. When no action and accept is the same, you are having the rejected. Only for the credit note, you will not have this pending status button. So original and amended records in the same period. Now we'll see what it is. Uh, this month, my supplier has issued one invoice. In the same period, he amended it, either by way of 1 year. In the same month, he amended. So whatever the action you have taken on the latter one, that is the amended one, only that will be considered. So before doing so, before acting on the amended invoice or debit note, ensure the original is moved from pending to accept or reject status. So before doing so, you have to either accept it, reject it, but you should not put that invoice under pending. So without this step, even system will not allow by putting the original invoice under pending status. So either you have to accept it, reject it, then only you can take the action on the amended record. Coming to if the original invoice in the current month, but my supplier has amended that invoice in the subsequent period. Let's say for the December month he has uploaded, but in the Jan month he has amended it. We'll see how the portal will react to it. So supplier amends original record in the later months. So first, what the supplier has to do first, he cannot take the action directly on the amended invoice. First, he has to take the invoice on the original record first. So and file that 3B of that month, and later he can take action on the amended records. So directly he cannot take action on the amended record. First, he has to take the action on the original record and then on the amended record. Hope it is clear. Moving on to the next slide. So what happens if recipient rejects a record? So I have issued one invoice, but my supplier has rejected it. What it will happen to? What it will happen now? So recipient rejects the record before filing of GSTR1. If he rejects before GSTR1, I can re-upload with the corrected amount. Data record will be made available in the IMS for action by the recipient. Okay. So before GSTR1, I can re-upload invoice. So that corrected invoice, he can accept it. But what my recipient did after I filed my GSTR1, he has rejected it. What I can do now? So supplier can either by with the help of GSTR1A, I can amend it, but on the amended record will be made available in the IMS for action by the recipient. So the original record will, whatever the action, already he has rejected the original invoice. So the amended records will be made available in the IMS for action by the recipient. So now he can, there is no restriction for him to take the action on the amended record because he already has taken action on the original record. So accidentally, if what if my rejection was marked erroneously by mistake, I have marked one invoice as a rejected, but it is supposed to be, it is correct, but overlook I marked it as an rejected. I marked it as an rejected on file return also. In that case, what I can do, because as and when you mark the invoice as an reject, it will move out of my IMS. If it is move out of my IMS, it will not flow to my 2B and also to my 3B. So what I can do now, if you have not filed your 3B, contact your supplier to re-upload that invoice again. So either supplier can fix it by amending it or reissue invoice and the corrected record. And thereon you can take the action on that invoice. So what about GST 2B for quarterly taxpayers? Even for the quarterly taxpayers, 2B will be generated after ending of the quarter, Q plus 1 month. The same way, the same logic is there for the monthly GST 2B also. For IMS also, the same logic will works. So for quarterly taxpayers, IMS will generate every quarter. Now we'll see some other FAQs. How many times I can generate the GST to be? So there is no restriction on number of times for generation of 2B. Before filing of 3B, you can generate multiple times the recomputed GST 3B. So what will happen to GST 2B? There is no impact to GST 2A. How it is generating now, the same way GST 2B, which shall continue to be generated. So is it mandatory to recompute 2B? The answer is no. If you have take any action in your IMS post to the generation of 2B, that is after 14 you have taken any action in IMS and you want it to get reflected in your 3B, then only you compute GST at 2B. Otherwise, it's not mandatory. Can a supplier amend forward charge invoice to the RCM invoice, and what will be the impact on the ITC? Yes, the supplier can amend forward charge invoice to the reverse charge. In that case, as we discussed earlier, RCM invoice will not go through the IMS, will go directly to the GSTR to be as a reverse charge document. Okay, so as and when my supplier amends the forward charge invoice to RCM invoice, it will uh, it will get removed from my IMS and go directly to GST to be bypassing my IMS. Hope it is clear. And whether liability can be added in the same GST 3B in case where credit note has been rejected. So in the previous slide we discussed that if I rejected the credit note which was issued by my supplier, in that case the liability will get added to my supplier's uh, 3B in the subsequent period. So will the liability will get added in the same period? Though the answer is no, because for you 3B due date is 20th and for him also 20th. So there is a practical difficulty to add that liability to your supplier 3B in the same period. So that's the reason if you rejected in the current period, that liability will get added to your supplier in the next period. So that's the answer here. So if you see here, if a credit note is rejected by the recipient, the liability of the supplier is increased on a portal to that extent in the 3B of the subsequent tax period, but not in the same tax period. Hope it is clear. So now we'll see GST 3B changes. There is one advisory that GST in future, that is from, actually it is a proposed rate from April 2025 onward, GST 3B will be hard lock. Hard lock means you cannot edit any field in your GST 3B. If you want to edit your GST 3B, you can do it either by way of your GSTR1 or through the IMS. That means if you want any of the, let's say, if you want to change the liability fields, you can do it by by doing it in your GSTR1, because from GSTR1 only the figures are auto populating in your GSTR3, right? So the auto populated figures will going to get freezed. And similar way, if you want to edit any the input details from the table 4 onwards, if you want to edit any of those fields, you can do it by taking action in your IMS. If you want to reduce ITC, auto populated ITC, I mean the populated ITC in your 3B, then you have to reject invoices. What are all the invoices you don't want to be in your 3B? You take action as a rejected in your IMS. So automatically, yeah, ITC will get reduced in your 3B. So based on that only, you can file your 3B. So at this is not implemented, but very soon government will go. Very soon GSTN will implement this also, hard locking of the GST 3B. So for doing so, we have to be ready with the IMS. Though it is optional now, it is suggested, it is advisable to prepare to follow the IMS, implement the IMS as soon as possible. So, ma'am, would you like to add anything, ma'am?
No, Jain.
Yes.
Sir, I have a doubt, sir. Can I ask?
Yes, yes, yes.
So you said like if at all we reject one of the credit note, it will get it will added in the supplier liability in the next month.
Yes,
But
yes, ma'am.
say like one invoice which particularly used for personal purposes and it has been included in my IMS portal. So basically I will reject basically I'm thinking that it is not eligible for ITC. I am rejecting that invoice, sir. So and suppose the next month the credit note is issued for the particular invoice where it has been used for personal purposes, and I am rejecting the same based on the reasons that it is not applicable for the taking ITC or something. So in that case, like how his liability will be increased, sir? Because like the base invoice, like I'm not eligible for that particular ITC, then how it will be added, sir, again?
So you are issuing credit note, ma'am?
Basically, I am getting one invoice in IMS portal where I'm not eligible. That ITC is not eligible. So I am
Okay. I
accepting.
got it, ma'am. Your supplier has issued the invoice, and against that invoice, he has issued credit note. He has
Yes,
not
sir.
sent that invoice and credit note, right?
Yes, sir.
In that case, you are rejecting the original invoice. Hello?
Yes, sir.
ma'am.
Yes, sir.
So basically, you are rejecting that invoice also. Is it right, ma'am?
Yes, correct, sir. Correct, sir.
It is a problem with your supplier, ma'am. Right. Basically, all this will happen in case of liners, the container suppliers.
Yes, sir.
They will only issue this invoice, and back to back, they will issue the credit note also. So it is their problem. They have to set their systems properly.
Jagadeesh, may I interrupt?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So if I understood the question, in the first month when the invoice was issued, madam has not accepted the invoice considering this, it being an ineligible credit for her. For example, she has purchased a laptop and which is used for the home use and not for the office use, something like that. And she has, it since being personal, she has not accepted the invoice. Madam, is that
Correct,
understanding
sir.
correct?
Correct, sir. Correct, sir.
Yeah.
Correct, sir.
And against that invoice, maybe you have returned back the goods and for which the credit note has been issued. Right?
Correct, sir. Correct, sir.
So the way this has to be dealt, first, whenever the invoices pertaining to exempted supplies or ineligible supplies, anything, in a normal course, the way you have to do is you have to accept the invoice
Yes,
and
sir.
report the credit in 4B1
Okay, sir. Understood,
as
sir.
ineligible. Okay.
Okay, sir. Okay,
Now,
sir.
for those supplies, when you receive the credit note, so in the current case, you have not accepted also, but you received the credit note.
Yes, sir.
You should accept the credit note. The credit of the credit note gets reduced to 4A5
Okay, sir.
in GST
Understood.
at 3B automatically. You have to manually restate it and make an amendment upward.
Okay, sir.
Okay, this is the
Understood.
procedure currently you have to follow.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir. Thanks a lot, sir.
Excuse me, sir. This process from April 2025 onwards, we cannot do the changes in 4B1, correct? No, 3B hard locking comes.
The currently the hard locking is only for the table 3 of 3B.
Correct.
So given that GST or 1A has come into picture, any changes that you have to do on the liability side, that you would be doing through 1A. So hard locking is given only for the outward liability. Input tax credit, hard locking is not done yet. And it as of now, that is not there in the process for hard locking.
Any idea from your end how this will be handled, sir, from April onwards? This kind of
Still no clarity because now the IMS has come. Once the IMS process get stabilized,
okay.
So you are not tracking 4B1 in the IMS at this point.
Okay. That
Once
means we have
the,
to.
yeah.
Okay, sir.
So once the credits which are not availed is getting tracked, that is when the hard locking related it would also start.
Okay, that means we have to accept in IMS. Then we have to in 4B1 we have to show us ineligible what we decided as per your
Absolutely, correct. So
what is that? Thank you.
rejection doesn't mean that the credit is not eligible. Rejection means the invoice doesn't pertain to you.
Okay.
Okay.
No.
It could also
Yeah.
be a situation that the invoice pertains to you. You have received the invoice, you have not received the goods yet.
Yeah.
You will still accept the invoice
Okay.
and you will be parking it into 4B2.
Okay.
So there is a difference between keeping an invoice pending versus or keeping an invoice rejected versus parking into 4B2. So the temporary reversal is different from this. The
Okay.
another point one should also be aware of, anything which is in pending state in IMS will automatically vanish from IMS after 30th November. So the effect of 16 subsection 4, the credit being ineligible after the 30th November is applicable to IMS. But if you have accepted a record, moved into your 4A5, availed the credit, removed it from your credit eligibility, parked it into 4B2. So that means you have taken it to electronic credit reversal and reclaim statement. In such a scenario, your ineligibility owing to the 30th November will not come in. And table 4D2 of GSTR 3B automatically tracks the ineligible documents. Ineligible documents means place of supply not equal to your state or the records having dated after 30th November. So all the IMS records which are not availing after 30th November will automatically move out of IMS and gets added reported to 4D2.
Fair enough, sir. Got it, sir. Yeah, that kind of scenario, it will not come in IMS. It will straight away 1 to 4B2. Yeah.
Correct.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Yeah.
Next is IMS optional now. I would say even if you don't take any action, it is showing as deemed accepted. Given that it is going to become mandatory, let's say from April, you will have to practice, understand the scenario, how you have to handle it. So it is better you start using IMS now rather than waiting for a day when it is going to become active. And I would suggest you should use some softwares to easily handle how these reconciliations activities are handled. Any other questions? Any questions from the earlier session of Ashika on 55th GST Council meeting, the related circulars and notifications that have come?
In chat, there is no query. If anybody have any query, they can unmute and ask.
Sir, this is not with respect to that Ashika madam query. Again, it is put IMS only. Actually, I raised the query to Ashika madam. She has replied. This outward IMS. See, so we are raising invoices to the customer. If he rejects, that also we can take action, no?
Okay. So now let's go back to the earlier example that I have received an invoice from you. I was supposed to accept it. Only when I accept, the input tax credit comes to me. If I reject it, the credit is going out of me. All right. And does it mean that your liability is reduced? Answer is no. So you will continue to show that as your invoice and you are paying taxes, but I am losing the benefit of input tax credit. Now, why did I reject? Two reasons. Reason number one, invoice doesn't pertain to me. Invoice actually pertains to Ashika, but by mistake you have selected my name. Or reason number two, it was eligible. I was supposed to accept. The accountant had made a mistake in making it as accept. He clicked on a reject button. So how does the credit comes back to the recipient? GSTN portal allows to rectify and reported invoice. So table 9 of GSTR1 has to, so the recipient has to now approach to the supplier stating that it is rejected, and supplier can see that record in his IMS dashboard under rejected records column. So the supplier will have to select that record in table 9 of R1 and he has to make it amend. Now, what is he going to amend? Assuming if there is a change in the name from Venu to Ashika, he will be changing the GST number. But situation where I have erroneously rejected it instead of accepting it. In such a scenario, GSTN has recognized this and they said that you amend the record and submit it. It would come back to the recipient dashboard again. What do I amend? You don't need to amend anything. You just state the invoice being amended. Earlier, we were amending by adding A to the invoice number or reducing, changing the taxable value by 1 rupee upward, downward, things like that. Now, amendment can be submitted even without making any amendment. Here, one point one should be very careful. If there is a rejection happening second time, the concept of amendment is only there once in GST. So the supplier cannot amend the same record twice. Is this clear, sir?
Yeah, thank you very much, sir.
Any other questions to anyone?
So can you just throw a light on HSN, sir? Because it becomes it is now becoming mandatory, sir.
Madam, table 12 of R1 is currently mandatory. The only exception to it is, when I say exception, the validation to it is the values in table 12 expected to be at least whatever the value that you are reported in table 4 and 6. That means all your B2B and invoice-wise reporting, if you have given a turnover of 1 crore there, the table 12 value has to be at least that much. But I would still say whatever the value of the turnover which is there in table 7, which is B2C, even that needs to be included. And it is mandatory, one has to report 6-digit HSN.
Okay,
So,
sir.
where do you get your HSN? I would always say, go back to your trade body. Look at what should be the HSN. For example, my own case. When I'm doing an audit of private limited company, company audit is different. When I'm doing a tax audit of a partnership firm, the HSN is different. When I'm doing an income tax return filing, the HSN is different. When I'm giving you an opinion on some topic, the HSN is different. When I'm going to the Commissioner Appeals and Tribunal representing your case, the HSN is different. Though I'm still in the business of audit and assurance, the services I'm providing are different HSN. Likewise, every industry has one or the other things they are dealing with. So whenever you have a confusion, go to your trade body. But your invoice should clearly depict what is the goods or services that you are selling. So please configure your ERPs with a 6-digit HSN of all the products that you are selling.
Yes, sir. Thanks, sir.
Yeah.
Sir, one more query. As advised, once we being a recipient, see, as advised, once we being a recipient, if you reject the invoices, it will go and sit in supplier screen as rejected. But is it compulsory? Necessarily, the supplier should take action on that?
There is a business term. So assuming you and I are in the business partners, my accountant made a mistake. Now
Okay.
I am calling you, asking you, saying that, sir, my credit got lost. Please restate. So
But yes, that supplier has to check it out. But why is the recipient rejected? Those you can take correct proper action there.
Absolutely.
Yes, sir. Yeah. Thank you, sir.
Okay. So there's a question that came on 9C and on the late fees. Okay. What is the late fees for 9C for the financial year 23-24? So there's a one-time waiver. which is proposed in the 55th GST Council meeting. Jagadeesh, the notification for waiver is not released yet, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So we
It's
will
just
have
an
to,
recommendations.
it's a recommendation, we will have to wait. But the 55th GST Council meeting has given a waiver of GSTR 9 and 9C up to financial year, which period, Jagadeesh?
2023, sir. For 17, from 17-18 to 2023.
Yeah. So 2022 to 23. So is there now for the financial year 23-24, December 24 was the last date, and every day delay you will have a penalty of 100 rupees, subject to a maximum of 0.5% of the turnover in the state, 0.5% CGST, sorry, 0.25% CGST, 0.25% SGST. So 0.5% of the turnover in the state. Anything to be added here, Ashika, Jagadeesh?
No, sir.
Nothing.
All right. So friends, now we don't have a technical session today. Firstly, I am traveling. I was outside and I couldn't attend. And the person who was supposed to take Tarun met with an accident. So we are rescheduling the technical session to the next date. We will be including you, informing you when the session is happening. Otherwise, on the GST aspect, these are the points that we were supposed to cover for the discussion today. Ashika, anything else not covered to be covered?
No, sir, only technical part. And
Yeah.
we will be sharing you for feedback, to write us feedback or any topic you want us to cover in the next sessions. So that same can be taken care, and PPT will be also shared to you all.
Yeah, so whenever we are sending you the feedback link, you have a link to download the copy of the presentation. So after every session, we have a practice of sending the copy of the presentation. So please take a look at it, and you can always reach to us if you have a clarification. And here is our WhatsApp group. You can always subscribe. You will get the latest updates on the GST. Okay, Stephen, can we end this session for today?
Yes, sir. We can end, sir.
Okay. So thank you, everyone. Thank you for your joining and your participation. And special thanks to Jagadeesh and Ashika for taking the session. Thank you.